What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 151 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, March 30th, 2026. I'm your host, Zach Malum. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of basketball and in the college game as St. John's run has finally come to an end. The Johnnies took on Duke on Friday evening down in Washington, D.C., a Sweet 16 matchup that St. John's actually led by 10 midway through the second half, but it's the Blue Devils who advance. They come back and really take it to the Johnnies in the second half, in the later stages of the second half. 80-75 is the final, and the Red Storm finish off this season 30-7. It was never going to be easy for St. John's as the 5 seed in the East, a very tough region, and you see the teams that they could have gone up against if they would end up moving on past Duke, of course, the number 1 seed in the entire tournament. Then they would have to face UConn or Michigan State in the next round. It ended up being UConn versus Duke, who advanced to the Elite Eight, and we'll get to that game in just a moment. But St. John's, you look at this season overall, I mean, what a season it was. They came down to the last couple of seconds in this game, especially with Dylan Darling, who had a chance to tie it, just a couple seconds left, and he ends up missing it wide left. The Johnnies had a phenomenal season overall, and a team that goes back-to-back in both regular season titles and postseason titles in the Big East. The first team to ever do that in consecutive seasons. Just a phenomenal achievement by the Johnnies, and they end up going out in the Sweet 16. It's an improvement, of course, over last year where they went out in the second round of the NCAA tournament, lost to Arkansas out in Providence last year. They got over the hump. And, of course, Dylan Darling, who made the shot to send the Johnnies to the Sweet 16. It was only right that he ends up taking the last shot in this game. I know there's a lot of argument of, well, they could have gone to other guys, and Dylan Darling, not the greatest three-point shooter. If you watched any of the last couple of games or the last 20 games or so for St. John's when they went on this massive run, beat every team in their way in the Big East, including UConn, the only losses in the last 23 games, UConn and Duke. Every one of those games that they won, Dylan Darling was a massive contributor for the Johnnies in that game. He ends up getting a pretty open look with 4 seconds left. He moved off the defender, a great crossover move to get away, and he ends up getting a wide open look in the end. He just did not get it to go down. It's a tough way for the Johnnies to go out, but I think the right shot by the St. John's Red Storm in this situation, especially with Darling and how he played down the stretch this season. He deserved that last shot. It just didn't fall for him, and he's probably going to be back for the Red Storm next year. They are going to have to go through massive changes. The Red Storm are. They're losing their entire front line. Dylan Mitchell, Zuby Ejiofor, and Bryce Hopkins all going to be gone. Ruben Prey, a guy who came off the bench most of the season, he ends up getting the starting center role, you would think, unless Rick Pitino has other things in mind. Ruben Prey actually had a great game in this Sweet 16 matchup. He had 12 points off the bench, 4 of 4, and every single one of those shots came from deep. He was 4 of 4 from beyond the arc, and he had a couple rebounds as well. Just a huge spark plug off the bench, Ruben Prey was, and he was that all season long behind Zuby Ejiofor. Come into the game and just be a difference maker. That's what Ruben Prey has done this season for the Red Storm, and he's going to end up being, like I said, a very big contributor for the Johnnies next season when they have to really transform this front line once again. There's going to be more changes as well. I think the thing that Red Storm fans will find comfort in the last couple of days is that Rick Pitino will be back for an additional year on his contract through the 2029 30 season. It makes him the second highest paid head coach in the Big East Conference, of course, behind UConn's Dan Hurley. Rick Pitino has done it all throughout college basketball. He completely overhauls this Red Storm program back to complete relevance, and they make it back to their first Sweet 16 since 1999. That's the fourth program that Pitino has brought to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. And of course, they fall to Duke on Friday, but they go up against the number one team in the country and give them a strong run for their money. Rick Pitino will be back. Of course, the biggest thing is now to the recruiting stage and what he can do in the transfer portal. In the era of NIL, he has not been a big recruiter in terms of freshmen. He's gone a little bit more overseas, and that's something that he probably will look at once again. I think he's going to be very involved in the transfer portal like he was at the end of last season. Gets St. John's over the top into the Sweet 16. The next goal, make it to the Elite Eight, and we'll see what happens. But Rick Pitino, at the age of 73, will be in charge once again of the Red Storm for another couple of years. A huge deal for the Red Storm as a program. But I want to get to the next game in the East region, one of the greatest basketball games you will ever see in the history of the NCAA tournament. UConn taking on Duke down in D.C., an Elite Eight matchup. And it was UConn who came all the way back after Duke took a 19-point lead midway through the first half. The Huskies win it in the final second, and it's Braylon Mullins who sends UConn to Indianapolis. The Indiana kid knocks down a massive shot, and Duke falls in a huge upset in the end, considering what Duke was going through this game. A 19-point lead. They completely give it up. They completely take a back seat in the second half, and UConn just starts knocking down shots. They did not hit many three-pointers in this game. They end up only hitting 5 on the evening, and they end up hitting the biggest one with Braylon Mullins, who knocks down the three-pointer. And like I said, the Indiana kid sends UConn to Indianapolis for the Final Four. They will end up meeting Illinois in the Final Four, and that should be a great matchup on Saturday. But I want to go through that final possession for Duke. You look at Duke and what they have been able to do in terms of this season, and the record stands out, 35-2. But this comes down to coaching. When you inbound the ball, Dame Sarr inbounds the ball. He gets it to Cam Boozer, and I give Cam Boozer credit because right away he knows get the ball out of his hands because a double team is coming his way. UConn has the possession arrow, so of course if it's a jump ball, they will get the ball back. There's 10 seconds on the clock though. So all Duke has to do, run the ball around, waste the 10 seconds, time runs out, no 10-second violation because the clock was at 10 when they inbounded. And of course, Dame Sarr, I don't know what he's thinking. He ends up throwing the ball as well. I think the biggest reason for Sarr, a 50% free throw shooter throughout the season, hasn't been great at the free throw line. But the question for Jon Scheyer after the game is, what is Dame Sarr doing inbounding the ball? Why is Isaiah Evans not involved in the play? Why is he running down court and looking for a long pass? He's the best free throw shooter on the team, almost 87% this season. Just ridiculous that he's not right there to have the ball in his hands right next to Cameron Boozer, who of course was 8 of 9 from the line on the evening. Then they throw it to Caden Boozer. Of course, Caden Boozer gets the turnover and tries to throw it up court. He's a point guard. He should know better. Of course, the freshman mistake, the big moment, the lights were a little too bright. Caden Boozer, hold the ball. There's only 10 seconds left, and you can get a 10-second violation or just let them foul you. And of course, Caden Boozer throws the ball away, and the rest is history. Braylon Mullins knocks down the shot, knocks off Duke, and Duke gets sent home for the second consecutive year after having a large lead throughout the game. They had a 14-point lead in the Final Four against Houston a season ago and lost it in the last couple of seconds as well. And of course, you look at this game, just a heartbreaker for Jon Scheyer. It does come down to coaching, no doubt about it. The final couple of seconds of this game, Duke has to be ready for the last play. Just hold the ball, get fouled. Jon Scheyer does not allow that. Of course, he cannot predict the turnover from Caden Boozer there. But even so, Jon Scheyer, 19-point lead, and you completely take a back seat in the second half. Just cannot happen. And Duke gets knocked off for the second consecutive year in heartbreaking fashion as the Blue Devils do not advance to the Final Four. UConn advances to Indianapolis. Just one of the craziest games you will ever see, and give credit to Ian Eagle and Bill Raftery, as well as Grant Hill on the call. They did a phenomenal job really looking at it in the end, saying, what in the world is Duke doing? Hold the ball, get fouled, and that's it. That's over. And they do not do that. And it's just a massive, massive comeback win for Dan Hurley. It's just in the DNA of UConn at this point. 3 Final Fours in the last 4 years. Of course, the couple of championships back-to-back in 3 and 4 years ago. Just crazy stuff heading into this Final Four in Indianapolis. And UConn is the winners. They end up going to Indy after knocking off Duke 73-72 down in D.C. in the Elite Eight. Staying in the world of basketball, but shifting things to the association, as the New York Knicks were in action last night. Sunday night basketball down in Oklahoma City, and the Thunder win this game 111-100. The final, the Knicks got 32 points from Jalen Brunson in this game, and it was responded to by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the other side with 30 points in this one. Got to the free throw line, of course, a big topic heading into this game, with the last time being Mike Brown's comments after the game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander knows how to get to the free throw line. Well, he did it again. 16 free throw attempts in the game. He made 13 of them at the charity strike. And when you look at it, Jalen Brunson played really well in this game, but the Knicks were down to the wire right next to OKC. They had a 2-point deficit with just over 4.5 left in this game. Just couldn't get stops and could not respond with shots of their own. And the Knicks end up falling. It was 97-95, 4:47 left in this game. And the Knicks just could not hit shots down the stretch. So it hurts them in this one. OKC, of course, was hitting shots when they needed it to. They led this game for 94% of it. Just a crazy, crazy game. And the Knicks almost had the Thunder in the fourth quarter. So you got to give credit to the Knicks. They kept this one close. It's the best team in all of basketball, in my opinion, in OKC. But the Knicks continue in these kind of games, just get over the edge, and they cannot do so. They cannot hit clutch shots, and it's really hurt the Knicks in some of these games. And, of course, when you're looking at the Knicks heading into the postseason, which is really not far off right now, they have to get that clutch factor back. Jalen Brunson needs to step up in those moments, and he did for the most part, 32 points in the game. But you're getting back to clutch player of the year last year. Heading into the playoffs now, he made some big shots all throughout that Pistons series and even made some clutch shots against Boston. They have to step up again this time around. And I don't completely trust the Knicks right now heading into the playoffs. They're second in the Atlantic Division, third in the conference. They got some teams around them, and Boston continues to win games. Of course, Detroit's not losing any games anytime soon. And the Knicks go into another tough matchup. This one takes place tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. And the Knicks are again on the road after losing back-to-back road games to the Hornets and the Thunder. They don't get an easy one. They go up against one of the top teams in the Western Conference, although they are sixth in the Western Conference, 45-29. On the year are the Houston Rockets, and this one should be a great matchup. 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Deuce McBride, who dealt with an injury already after returning in this Thunder game, he ends up going out with that injury. Still undisclosed, but you think it has to do with that surgery that he had just a couple of months ago. And, of course, they would love to have him back healthy, the Knicks would. But, of course, you're not going to risk him in big games like this. You'd rather have him in the playoffs. You're just hoping right now that Deuce McBride is going to be healthy heading into the playoffs. That's a big thing for the Knicks right now. Of course, when you're also looking at the Rockets side, they've dealt with injuries throughout the season. They're dealing with the injuries, of course, Fred VanVleet and Steven Adams both out for the year. And, of course, they got the rest of the guys, though, and Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, doing their thing. 45-29 on the year. They are 25-10 on their home floor. The Rockets are this season, and it won't be an easy matchup for the Knicks. They gotta grab a win as they look to chase Boston still for that number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night. It's an 8 o'clock start down at the Toyota Center It's the Rockets and the Knicks down in Houston. Shifting things to baseball, as both New York teams finished up their season opening series this past weekend, we start in the Bronx as the New York Yankees took on the San Francisco Giants out in San Francisco as the Yankees start their season with 2 road series, and one of them in San Francisco, the next one in Seattle. We'll get to that in just a minute, but they take down the San Francisco Giants, and this series was not even close. The Yankees end up outscoring the Giants 13-1 in this series. Complete domination. Great job by the bullpen for the Yankees as well. But the starters were really the story in every single one of these games. It started on Wednesday. Max Fried ends up getting the victory, was dominant throughout. The Yankees offense started off strong. On opening night, they win that game 7-0. They followed up with a 3-0 win on Friday afternoon. Cam Schlittler got the ball, shutout baseball, and complete domination from him as well. The lineup also stepped up with Aaron Judge hitting the go-ahead 2-run homer. Giancarlo Stanton followed that one up with a bomb himself, 414 feet into left. Yankees end up getting another easy win on the afternoon, and then they go into Saturday's game and another afternoon game. Actually, this one was a night game out in San Francisco, an afternoon game in terms of San Francisco time, 4:15 start out on the Bay, and they end up winning the game as well. The Yankees do 3-1 the final. It got a little antsy towards the end. David Bednar came in for the save, and a little bit of chaos for the Giants. Some guys on the bases, but a game-ending double play, and David Bednar gets his second save of the season. It was Ben Rice who started things off with a 2-run double in the third inning. Matt Chapman responded in the bottom of the third with an RBI single of his own for the first Giants run of the season. And then Aaron Judge doing Aaron Judge things already. His second home run of the season, and it's another bomb into left field. 3-1. The Yankees take the lead, and they end up winning it by the same final score. So a great start to the season. Jake Bird also got the win in the game for the Yankees. He's been pretty good in a couple appearances out of the bullpen so far. And just business as usual. Yankees, pretty good team in the regular season. They have been under Aaron Boone in his tenure, and they just continue to pick up where they left off. A really good team, and a team that's going to be hard to beat in the American League East this season. So the Yankees head into their next series, the second series of the year, and it's up in Seattle. A tough series against the Seattle Mariners. It all starts tonight, a 9:40 start, a late one for those Yankee fans, and it's going to be Ryan Weathers, the lefty, getting his first appearance as a Yankee. He's going up against right-hander Luis Castillo. It should be an interesting game, and it ends up being a pick-em about for this Yankees team. They're minus 115 on the money line. The run line sits at 7.5 in this game. It is interesting right now with the Yankees. They are scoring runs, especially on opening night they were, but just enough to get them over the line. It's really been the pitching that's been the difference maker, and you're hoping that Ryan Weathers does the same thing that Will Warren did the day before and just shut things down for a large portion of the game and hand it off to the bullpen at the end of the night. Seattle 2-2 on the year so far. They're coming off of a series split against the Cleveland Guardians. That series was up in Seattle as they get their second straight series at home. The Mariners do, and we'll see what happens. Should be a great one between these two teams. A maybe American League Championship Series preview heading into this season. I think it should be a great series up in Seattle. 3 games as the Yankees take on the Mariners out west before heading home for their opening day series in terms of home games. They end up taking on the Marlins at the weekend. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in to the first game of the 3-game set against the Seattle Mariners. It's a 9:40 start as the Yankees take on the Mariners up in Seattle. But on the other side of New York, the New York Mets were also in action. Their season opening series was at Citi Field, taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Mets end up winning the series 2-1. It started on Thursday with a big-time win and a big-time start against Paul Skeens. The Mets put up 5 runs on the NL Cy Young winner from last year and knock him out before the first inning is over. He only goes 2/3 of the first inning. Freddie Peralta on the other side got the win. 5 innings pitched, 6 hits allowed, 4 earned runs, no walks, 7 Ks. And he gets his first win as a Met. Of course, Paul Skeens gets charged with the loss in this game. Mets win at 11-7. It was all about the offense in this game. Juan Soto 2-for-4. Luis Robert Jr., who we'll get to in a minute, went 2-for-4. Francisco Alvarez stepped up 2-for-4 in the game, including a long ball to give the Mets an 11-5 lead. And then it was Marcus Semien as well, who went 2-for-5 in the game. Carson Bench made a really statement early on in this one. Couple of runs he scores, and the big one was the home run ball. His major league debut, his first career home run, a big-time hit by Carson Bench, and the Mets end up winning 11-7, and they take down the Pirates on opening day at Citi Field, sending the fans home happy. And then they had a day off on Friday, moved to Saturday afternoon, where the Mets took on the Pirates again, and it was Richard Lovelady who gets the win in the end. David Peterson started the game, but it was Luis Robert Jr. who ends up getting the biggest hit of the game. It's a walk-off 3-run home run into left center field as the Mets win it 4-2 off Hunter Barco, who pitched an inning and did not look great early on. Then he ends up really struggling in the 11th as Luis Robert takes him deep. Just a big-time hit by Robert and his Mets moment early on. He's been really good so far this season, and we'll get to him more in just a little bit. The Mets ended up taking this one, so they take the opening series. They had one more game to play, though, on Sunday afternoon, and it was the Mets who end up losing the game after really coming back. They trailed midway through the game. They got a big hit, from Juan Soto in the 5th inning to tie the game, an RBI single. And then that was the only run until the 10th inning. Top of the 10th, it was the Pirates who came up big in this one. Ryan O'Hearn ends up hitting an RBI single to start off the inning, and Brian Reynolds scores. Then it's Henry Davis who hits an RBI single, and Cook comes in to score. The Pirates take a 4-2 lead. The next half inning was just chaos. And Juan Soto hits a RBI single, or RBI double, into center field. Francisco Alvarez comes in to score. Francisco Lindor comes across third base and towards home plate. He is thrown out at home. A very questionable decision in the end. You have second and third, no outs in extra innings, or you have a guy who's out at home plate, 1 out, and then you have a runner on second. Just a questionable move by the third base coach in the end for the Mets, and they end up losing the game in the end after Bo Bichette, who had a horrible day, once again, has 8 strikeouts total in this series. He went 1-for-14 with an RBI and 8 Ks this series against the Pirates, and had another just stinker at bat in the end. In the 10th inning, he grounds out to shortstop as Juan Soto moved to third, but it was Jorge Polanco who got the last at bat. He ends up flying out deep to right field, and the Mets lose this one 4-3. A bit of a heartbreaker in the end, but there are positives from this opening series. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to sweep every series as well. Luis Robert Jr., just a big-time performer all throughout the series. He's batting .455 so far this season, and he's really stepped up so far. Another guy who's really stepped up, in my opinion, Brett Baty, who went 2-for-4 once again. Didn't get, of course, the clutch hit in the end for this Mets team, but really stepped up all throughout this series, and Brett Baty ends up getting another spot where he's either the DH or the first baseman. He looked pretty good at first base, if I have to say so, yesterday. Definitely a stronger spot for him, I would say, than having Jorge Polanco there at first base. Just my opinion. I think Polanco would do better as a DH and getting those at-bats. Of course, yesterday was not a good example of that, going just 0-for-5 on the day and as the DH, but he ends up starting off the season slow. Jorge Polanco does. I think Brett Baty at first base is the way to go for this Mets team. Yes, you can continue to get Polanco in that spot and teach him in that spot. Brett Beatty's not going to be able to play every day, although why not? He should be in the lineup almost every day, playing whatever position the Mets need him to. I think it's the better spot for Brett Beatty to throw him at first base. And he, like I said, he looked pretty good yesterday, even though the Mets lost that game 4-3 in 10 innings. So the Mets head into their next series, and it's going to be a tough one on the road as they head out to St. Louis to take on the St. Louis Cardinals. And tonight it starts a 7:45 start, as Clay Holmes gets the ball. He's going up against Kyle Leahy. And Clay Holmes was really good last season, his first real season as a starting pitcher. Looked pretty good. ERA in the mid threes. That's a real good start to a career in terms of starting pitching. That's exactly what Clay Holmes did last year. Looking to continue that as the Mets 2-1 and the St. Louis Cardinals as well 2-1. It's been a red hot start for J.J. Weatherholt, who goes into this game coming off of a walk-off. He had a home run as well in this past series that the Cardinals took on the Rays in. They end up losing the final game 11-7 on Sunday. But really, the Cardinals are a team to watch out for in the National League this season, especially in the NL Central. It's going to be a tough series for the Mets, but you expect them to come out with a series victory. 3 games. The third one on Wednesday will be a day game, so that's something to watch out for as the Mets take on the Cardinals, the first of a couple series out west. And of course, it's not going to be easy for the Mets to travel from St. Louis then to San Francisco for a 4-game set against the Giants, but we'll see what they can do with it. The offense has to step up, and we'll see if they can do that heading into this series against the St. Louis Cardinals. So make sure you tune in tonight. It's a 7:45 start. Holmes against Leahy as the Mets take on the Cardinals out in St. Louis. Let's finish things off today in the world of hockey as the New York Islanders continue to make a run towards the NHL playoffs, and they get another very tough test tonight, coming off of a huge win on Saturday where the Islanders took down the Florida Panthers 5-2. Ilya Sorokin stepped up, but the Isles rattled off plenty of goals in the second period after going into the first intermission down 2-0. The Islanders rattle off 5 goals in the second and take a 5-2 lead. Nothing to do in the third, and they end up winning the game 5-2, taking down Florida. Tough, gritty win for the Islanders, and they just cannot stop scoring in that game against the Panthers, but they get their biggest game of the year so far tonight. It's going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins coming to town as they take on the Islanders, a 7 o'clock start at UBS Arena. And really cannot be understated how massive a game this is for the New York Islanders. They continue to roll right now in the Eastern Conference, and they sit right now in the 2 seed in the Metropolitan Division. Columbus ends up dropping a game, so they're sitting 74 games played, 88 points. The Islanders, 89 points with 74 games played. Pittsburgh, 73 games played, 88 points in third place right now in the Metro Division. And if the Islanders win this one, they're really edging closer to the playoffs. They're not there just yet because they still have a very tough schedule down the stretch, but they have to come up with a victory tonight. Just get the job done. Another one where backs against the wall, just find a way to win. Ilya Sorokin's got to step up. The Islanders themselves have to step up. You're expecting the experience now of the experienced players, the Casey Cizikas of the world, Braden Shen, step up, get these guys ready. Another playoff type game, and they have the home crowd behind them. Make sure you tune in tonight. It's a 7 o'clock start for the Islanders before they head to a back-to-back against the Buffalo Sabres. That one tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. We'll recap all of these games on Friday's episode, but a massive, massive needed win here for the Islanders in their biggest game of the year so far. Pittsburgh comes to town, a 7 o'clock start at UBS. Make sure you tune in to that one later. But that will do it for episode 151 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malum, and thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.